Hello everyone. Today we are going to start a tutorial on JDBC. So JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity. It is a very critical concept for anyone working with Java applications that need to interact with databases. Now throughout this session we will cover some basic concepts of JDBC and what is an API. So before we dive into JDBC, there are some prerequisites you need to know. To fully understand JDBC, you should have some basic knowledge on Java programming and some object-oriented programming concepts like abstract class and interfaces. Now before, let's first understand the concept of an API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. So we will look at the official definition given by IBM. So an API or application programming interface is a set of rules or protocols that enable software applications to communicate with each other to exchange data, features and functionality. This definition might sound technical at first, but don't worry. We will break down into step by step and understand with a simple example. So let's understand it with a simple case, a real world scenario. Like imagine that you are in a restaurant. First, look at the menu card to decide what do you want to eat. Then you call the waiter to place your order. The waiter takes your order to the kitchen where the chef prepares the food. Once the food is ready, the waiter brings it back to you. So this is a straightforward process we are all familiar with. Now let's connect the restaurant scenario to the working of an API. Let's connect the references. Suppose consider customer as the client, waiter as an API and chef as the server. So what happens in a hotel scenario is the customer requests food to the waiter. In the similar way, our client application also requests some data to the API. So what our waiter does, our waiter takes the request order from the customer to the chef. In the similar way, the request sent by the client is sent to the server. Now in a hotel scenario, what happens is the chef prepares the food and gives it back to the waiter. In the similar way, the server retrieves all the necessary data from the database which the client wants and gives the response back to the API. Now this data is then finally sent back to the client as the waiter gives the food that is ordered by the customer back to him. So from this example, we can see that API acts as an interface between the client and the server. Now it handles the communication by taking the request from the client and forwarding them to the server and returning the server's response back to the client. Now let's revisit the official definition of an API from IBM. So what it says, an API or application programming interface set of rules or protocols. It consists of set of rules, not that any client can access any server. Where software applications like client is also a software application, server is also a software application where they can communicate with each other to exchange. It might be the exchange between the client and server might be data, features or functionality. Now, one thing, many people are confused about the difference between a server and a database. So let's first clear that up. So the database is usually the actual data, that is the storage area where all the information is kept. For example, here we have some customer table where the customer ID, first name and last name are present. The actual data is present in the database. Then what is server? Server is nothing but the logic. See, access the data, we need some interface to access this data. So the server contains the logic, that is the programming logic is present in the server to retrieve and process the requested data by the client. See, to give you a glimpse of what we will be learning, here is a small snippet of JDBC code that demonstrates how we can connect to the database. Here there is some query written in SQL. So using this query, then using this piece of JDBC code, we can retrieve what data, actual data we want from the database. The server contains the program that might be in Java or any other language to retrieve the data from the database, and database that contains the actual data. Now, what is JDBC? The JDBC is the API which takes request from the Java program that is present in this server and retrieve the actual data from the database. Here, consider this Java program that is in the server as the client side and the database as the server side, and JDBC is the API that takes the request from server and fetches the response from the database. In other words, finally I want to say JDBC acts as a bridge between the Java application and the database. Now I hope you have a clear understanding of what JDBC is and how it works. It's not limited to only accessing databases but also other resources like spreadsheets and all of that. Now in next video we will look into why do we need JDBC.